This impacts all of us, especially those of you who support independent media, free journalism, freedom of speech. We're going to talk about Julian Assange. And right now, at least according to this information from RT America, Julian Assange could be charged under the Espionage Act for leaking classified material in addition to the hacking charge he already faces, according to the United States Department of Justice. Now, basically, they're, according to them, possible violations of the United States federal criminal law regarding the unauthorized receipt and dissemination of classified information. And just so you guys have an idea what the Espionage Act is, it was a 1917 law intended to protect military secrets, has been used as a powerful implement against whistleblowers. Chelsea Manning was sentenced to 35 years in prison under the act for her role for leaking leaking evidence of U.S. war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan, while Edward Snowden was hit with 2 charges under the act for his disclosures related to mass surveillance. So just an idea what you guys are, what we're going to be dealing with is that, right now, Julian Assange, he is, in prison at the moment.
In the UK.
In the UK. Yeah. I hope he's not being tortured, but at least right now at this moment, as we've mentioned before, he's in British custody, and he's awaiting an extradition hearing this April from his arrest in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Now, British law mandates that suspects cannot be extradited to countries with the death penalty. It's unclear whether the Department of the DOJ's probe will affect this process. So, I'm concerned for the safety of Julian Assange. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people within the neoliberal establishment that want to see that guy hanged or tortured or all of the above. I'm concerned for his safety and, the lack of silence from other media outlets, especially those in the establishment. A lot of journalists are applauding the fact that Julian Assange has been arrested and that he's going to face his trial and that he's going to be handled appropriately. Just a reminder, what happened to Julian Assange can happen to any one of us. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, independent, libertarian, socialist, I don't care. And just remember, to our wide viewing audience, whatever show that you get your information from, those same co-hosts and anchors can be arrested too. This is terrible that this is happening right now, and Julian Assange must be freed. He didn't do anything wrong. So I want to hand it over for commentary for Paul DuPont. You got some very important information.
Yeah, so the fact that Julian Assange is being charged officially with essentially hacking crimes, that's what can serve as a way to extradite him to the United States. One of the rules that the UK has is that they cannot extradite someone for political purposes, which this obviously is. And so now that we've learned the fact that the DOJ has prepared new charges for whenever Julian Assange gets on U.S. soil, that's the real concern here, is that it isn't about, you helped somebody with a password, irregardless of the fact that that wasn't actually necessary for access to the documents we're talking about. Now, when you get here, we are going to charge under the Espionage Act. This is an attack on journalistic press freedoms. So this is an interesting quote from the Pentagon Papers lawyer, James Goodale. He says, under U.S.-UK extradition treaty, one cannot be extradited from the United Kingdom if the extradition is, quote, for political purposes. This explains why the indictment does not contain any charges alleging that Assange conspired with the Russians to impact the 2016 presidential election. It may also explain why the indictment focuses on hacking government computers rather than on leaking stolen government information, inasmuch as leaking could be characterized as being done for political purposes. When Assange arrives in the United States, though, through extradition, as many expect he will, the government will then be able to indict him for his participation in that election. It is not out of the question that the government will come up with additional charges against Assange, which now seems entirely plausible, entirely likely, and more likely than not, it will be under the Espionage Act, which, if you are a journalist working in a free speech domain, it should be entirely concerning that we are now essentially giving the U.S. government the ability to define who is a legitimate journalist and who isn't. So if you're going to charge someone for doing journalistic practices and claim he's not a journalist, we're totally allowed to use the Espionage Act because he publicized inconvenient true things about our government's malfeasance, that's kind of what journalism is for. You're criminalizing journalism. Everyone should be upset about this. Everyone should be mad about this. We should be yelling it from the rooftops. And it's disgusting to see journalists, high-profile journalists in mainstream press, loudly decrying, he's not a real journalist. This isn't an attack on press freedoms. You're all fine.
Yeah.
You guys should be worried.
Yeah. Daniel.
So I want to get more on that last part. So it's fascinating how Democrats, and people say all the time to me, to us, that, hey, why are you guys focused so much on Democrats? What do? Republicans are the real boogeyman that you have to be worried about. Don't worry about the Democrats. You're just causing division. This is why. Because we can't have a Democratic Party who, when they feel that they got slighted and then they lose their big gamble. Like I said before, I say it again, that this is happening because they're trying to save face from losing the Mueller report and him not finding anything that they can go with. So who do they go with? The next boogeyman, Julian Assange, who apparently is this terrible person who they hate, except for the times they liked him when he helped them out against Republicans. 3 different times Assange has been praised by the Democratic Party and hated by the Republican Party. And I gotta say, this is another instance where the Republican Party is actually acting closer to the ideals of democracy and the First Amendment than the Democratic Party are. Because I've never seen the Republicans, I've seen them get really upset at him, but I haven't seen them try to extradite him to the United States in the same way the Democrats have. And right now, like Paul was saying, they can't just push him into the U.S. for the reasons listed with the U.K., but they're going to say, well, if we can't get Trump, at least we got Assange. He's the guy that made it happen. He's this hacker. And they can put all the baggage that they want. And all it will cost from their point of view is the life of one person who they didn't agree with to begin with. Mm-hmm. So Assange is paying the price for the incompetence of the U.S. government and the incompetence of the Democratic Party. And mainstream media, as we know, is lockstep. They are basically stenographers for one party or the other. So they're going along with it. And so they don't see the threat and the precedent that they're creating by saying the government gets to determine who gets First Amendment press freedoms. And if they get to do that, well, then what does the First Amendment really mean? If they get to do that, is it legal anymore to publish things of corruption or genocide or war crimes that the U.S. doesn't want to share? If you publish them, if this goes through, are you by de facto someone that's spying on the government like a spy?
Yeah. And, there's a couple... I want to add one more note on this before we move on to our other story. Look, this is a serious threat towards independent journalism. And every American should be calling for the release of Julian Assange. And the thing is, I don't think we'd be having this conversation about Julian Assange being extradited to the United States were not for the Democrats as well as the neoliberal establishment media keep on hyping up Russiagate and apparently Trump's ties to Russia and Putin. I think the reason why right now the Department of Justice is even calling for Assange to come here is because so that Trump can once again prove he's not tied to Russia or Putin. And it's a dangerous situation. And when you have anchors, especially on establishment media, calling for his arrest, calling for his trial, and then you compare it to somebody like Tucker Carlson, who actually got down all the facts on why Julian Assange should not be arrested and why he's in jail right now, it tells you we're living in an upside-down world right now, and we need to really reevaluate our political system. We need to get money out of politics, and we need to break the monopoly of the corporate media and its stranglehold of information. Because right now there's a lot of Americans who don't know the real truths and consequences of Julian Assange being arrested. Right now, if you support free speech and independent media, everyone, I don't care what your political ideology is, we should all be emotionally concerned about this and actually make our voices heard for calling for Julian Assange release.
And I want to throw into that this is a situation which can... Again, the NSA is built off a precedent of a single court case where someone was stalking this guy was stalking a woman through a phone booth, and they wanted to contact AT&T to trace where that phone call was coming from, because apparently he would, I think, call the same time every night or something of that nature. And the court case was basically saying, the AT&T has to allow this tap to happen. AT&T was trying to stop that from happening. That's what the NSA is based on. It's that court case. It's taking information from every database out there that's based on that court case. So for people that might be saying, oh, you're exaggerating, it's not going to be that bad, whatever.
It is.
Court case, much bigger bureaucracies that take away much more of our freedom have been built off of so much less.
Yep. So these are the times we're living in, and we need to have strong independent media to call out the hypocrisy of our neoliberal system.
We're going to have to follow this story really closely. We're going to more will happen toward the end of this month, early in May.
Yeah.
We will expect to see Assange extradited to the United States. We will expect to see these new charges. We will have a lot more information once those moves take place.
Yeah, and this is probably also going to be impacting the, especially the primary race for the Democrats, because it's going to be important to see which ones the Democratic candidates. I know Tulsi Gabbard has gone on the record saying that he should not be arrested. Bernie Sanders to some extent, but we really need to have independent journalism. We need to have true accountability, because that's what journalism is about. It's
and
about
whistleblower protections.
And holding these people in power accountable. I don't care whether they're Democrat or Republican. We need to hold those in power accountable, and that's what the press is supposed to do.
One very small thing.
But we all want to add some final notes to this because we're scared.
Because
we're scared about this.
This is also the Democratic Party being rash because they don't have a lot of options. This isn't just something that was super planned out. This is a act of saving political face. This is an act of desperation of the Democratic Party. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.